next generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, A Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
States have seceded.
The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
The three-term president assures the uprising will be dealt with swiftly.
Let me know if you want to try anything on.
Are you guys aware there's like a pretty huge civil war going on all across America?
We just try to stay out. With what we see on the news, seems like it's for the best.
Citizens of America.
The so-called Western forces of Texas and California
Have suffered a very great defeat at the hands of the United States military.
Mr. President, do you regret the use of airstrikes against American citizens?
We're moving to D.C. today.
We need to go down there.
They shoot journalists on sight in the Capitol. Every instinct in me says this is death.
Bloody.
Every time I survived the war zone, I thought I was sending a warning home. Don't do this. But here we are.
There's some kind of misunderstanding here. What? Well, you're American, okay?
Okay. What kind of American are you? You don't know?
The Western forces will reach the White House on July 4th.
Oh my God.
Get in the car! Get in the car!
Move, move, move!
You're gonna hang back.
I'm not hanging back.
One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go, 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 go!
God bless America.
Bro,
What's up, man? Here we go again.
Here we go again. First things first. We're live.
We are live. We're on my channel. We're on your channel. This is fun.
This is the way I like it, man. First, let me say, you guys, I know you're used to us starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. That's on me. It's been a heck of a day. Josh has been a great sport and just molded with me on that. It's the reason I kind of went to the can things, and then I just joined the audience live. This Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are hard, but this is important, man. I mean, this,
important.
Yeah.
Dude, this weekend, so this weekend, we're talking about the movie Civil War tonight for everybody out there. And you have to understand how critical this weekend was to that. I just cannot stress this enough, because the next 24 to 48 hours will make or break 2024 for the United States of America. And I mean, this is critical. And so shout out to my audience out there. I know we're an hour late tonight, but that's okay. We're having fun. This is going to be a good conversation with me and Alpha. Looking forward to it. So go ahead, man. Let's rock this shit.
Let's rock it, man. I mean, it's just, I think we're all, and shout out to everybody from the Red Pill Project. You guys got some talent over there. So for my audience, you probably caught the show that, me and Josh did last week surrounding the solar eclipse. The feedback I got from everybody, Josh, was like, one, of course, you're brilliant. everybody agrees with me on you're the walking encyclopedia, but also how you were also the most accurate with the information that they heard from, from the hundreds, if not thousands of people that were out there. And we're in a really critical time right now where we all see it, clickbait, it's prevalent. And it's hard when people are in search of the truth, or at least in search of being put in the right direction, and they got to like maneuver through all this garbage that's out there. So for my audience, if this is the first time that you're familiar with, or you're catching Josh, you got to go to redpills.tv. You got to sign up. You got to get this information, and you just make sure you come back.
Yep.
Make sure you come back. But let's start off with the dates, man. April 12th, that's the official release date. And if I'm correct in my math, that's the day that the Civil War pretty much kicked off.
It is. And they did that on purpose. So I've been listening to a lot of kind of the correspondence behind the movie, and they wanted to make this as real as humanly possible. Everything down to the sounds of the guns firing. For people out there who don't know, that traditionally in movies, they suppress the gun sounds so it doesn't scare you and shock you. But in this movie, they made them as realistic as humanly possible because they wanted that fear ingrained into you. So obviously the date close to Lexington and Concord, the Revolutionary War, close to the start of the Civil War. They did that for a reason. And I mean, even in our own country right now, it's kind of interesting that symbolically we're close to Civil War. But one of the interesting things I found is that you don't find out why. You don't find out why the sides are fighting each other. But I think we do know why. And it's ideological in nature. And it goes back to the trailer that you were just watching. And they said, oh, hold on. We're Americans. And he says, oh, what kind of Americans? And I think that is the key point that they want to put out there in the sense of the ideological reference. Because
the most dangerous scene in the movie.
Yep. And so right now we have this divergence in ideologies in the United States. We got far left and far right. And I will be honest, that most of us sit in the middle. I'm not far right. I'm not even close to being anywhere near left. But we have these two divergence of political classes in the country. And that's just in the mental state, the mindset of the people. I mean, you go to Washington, D.C., this is a uniparty people. They are playing us like fiddles. And so I think it's the convergence of all of that drives this type of conflict. Now, in perspective, we hear about the Texas to California alliance. We hear about 19 states joining the coalitions. This is important because what this tells you, and you don't really get to hear about this in the movie, is that this starts because of states, the state standing up against the federal bureaucracy. That's how this begins. And my audience out there knows that I've always said is when we have a civil war, because we're going to have a civil war sometime in our future, whether it's going to be this year, most likely next year. I'm not gonna put sugar in that shit. Most likely next year, 2025, It will be the time that we have this. It's going to be 10th Amendment sovereignty. It is going to be states rising up against the federal bureaucracy and going against the federal government. This comes about from Thomas Jefferson and Madison. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison exchanged a series of letters, which later on became known as the Federalist Papers. Federalist 46 talks about the 4 ways to curb a tyrannical and oppressive federal government if it ever arose. The 4 kind of synopsis of this is that, number 1, you have to have people standing up on their soapboxes. You have to have disquietude amongst the people getting out there and being verbal. Number 2 is you have to have high levels of civil disobedience. Now, Madison and Jefferson, they never defined civil disobedience as violent or nonviolent. They didn't give a shit. I mean, you got to remember, these are the people that stormed the ship in Boston dressed as Indians and threw tea over that shit. They're the ones that stormed the armory and got armed up when Redcoats rode into town. They didn't mind civil disobedience being violent. And so when Madison is saying this, you got to understand what he's saying in the sense of civil disobedience is he's like, look, you need to put the brass knuckles to the face You know, the tree of liberty needs to be refreshed from time to time. The blood of tyrants and the blood of patriots. That's what they're talking about. Then the next two parts actually go to the state. And this is state legislation counteracting federal tyranny. And we're already seeing that right now with Texas. Okay. And then outspoken governors, DeSantis, Abbott, Nome, a lot of these. And by the way, for all the DeSantis haters out there, look, I don't like DeSantis. I never have liked DeSantis, but I believe that DeSantis is Trump's pawn.
He has a role.
He has a role. He's Trump's pawn. The reason he ran was to diverge the rhinos from the MAGA.
And we saw it.
And we saw it. And we're still seeing it today. And this is why that DeSantis might get a cabinet in his next administration. But he served a purpose. And that's how 5D chess is played. But when we're looking at the world right now converging to a point of civil war, and there's an important point here. I mean, let's just look at the historical aspect of this. You have Ray Dalio. You know who Ray Dalio is?
The name sounds familiar.
So he's an economist. He's the chairman of Bridgewater Capital, which is a multi-billion-dollar investment fund. They got like $100 billion under management. He's also,
I think you're the one that told me about him.
Yeah, he's one of the top aides over there at the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
He wrote a book a year and a half ago called New World Order. Quite literally. And he goes around and he does this whole speaks on the New World Order. And he was asked during this book tour is, what do you think is going to happen during the 2024 election? And he says, well, you know, we're in a very critical time in our history, the United States of America, and politically, everything is incredibly extreme. He goes, you have extremism on the left and you have extremism on the right. And he goes, the problem with the 2024 election is if the Republicans win, the Democrats will never accept it. And that'll converge us into civil war. But then he says, if the Democrats win, the Republicans won't accept it. And that'll converge us into civil war. And he says, I don't see really any way out of it in 2024. Now, this is one of the people who sits at the table. This is one of the global elites saying 2024 is going to converge into World War III or into civil war, right? So we have to keep that in mind, that this narrative is being set. I like to look at society as a representation of the zeitgeist, right? The zeitgeist is the spirit of our time. Right? What drives our souls during that time and builds up culture and society. And what they want to do is they want to control the zeitgeist. They want to control the spiritual aspect of humanity that builds culture. This is why they move towards these ideological preferences and use these ideological preferences to really radicalize people to no ends. And it doesn't even matter how they radicalize them, whether it's LGBTQ, trans, BLM, whether it's MAGA, whether it's white nationalist. All they need is that spectrum to be created among itself. And then humanity will do the rest. We will do the rest, because what you're finding out about people is that we have groupthink mentality. We saw this on January 6th, not saying that, you know, January 6th was all peaceful, because it wasn't. We know it wasn't. There was shit that happened. Good people fucked up. Some good people stayed good people, right? But the government took advantage of that situation and made a lesson out of people. Hey, don't ever can do this again, or this is what's going to happen to all of you.
And it worked.
And it worked. It worked to a very high end. And so that's the boot to the neck right there. And so then, and also to context of that, is the problem with what happened on January 6th is it happened about 6 months after the riots. And the Minneapolis riots and so forth. But here's the thing, is nobody from those riots were getting anywhere near the treatment that the people on January 6th got. And so we start seeing the weaponization of the DOJ. And now we're seeing that full-heartedly with the last 4 years of Donald Trump and utilizing the DOJ to basically target you, me, and everybody else. We defeated censorship for a time being on Twitter. But then today you just saw that we have the RISA bill. So this is the FISA reauthorization bill, where they just passed Section 702 reauthorizations. Now, for anybody out there who's never read FISA 702 authorizations, it gives no legal authority whatsoever to spy on American citizens. None. Zero. Okay, but they find loopholes within policy through executive orders, because executive orders aren't law, they're policy that go down from the administration to the administration heads. It's like a corporation. All the department heads got to follow this policy and this regulation. So all the people under there, and if they tell them to enforce something, that gets enforced on the people that fall under the jurisdiction, right? So when we look at what happened is with this new bill, is there's a part in there that everybody overlooked. Do you remember a year ago? June last year. Remember the Restrict Act?
I do.
Okay. I was with American Mission, Dustin Stockton, all those guys. We were trying to stop that.
We went ape shit on that one.
We did. Mm-hmm. So what they did is they basically revised one of the provisions in the Restrict Act and put it in the FISA 702 reauthorizations. And for anybody who doesn't know what this means, basically what they're doing is with FISA authorities, by their authorizations, the NSA ties directly into internet service providers, including Google, Facebook, and any social media network, and they can collect and request all your data, including all historical data, private messages, DMs, all your metadata, geolocation data, everything under the sun. This is direct spying on American citizens. And here's the key is that with FISA authorizations, the 702 authorizations, they don't need the warrant. Okay? So basically, they're doing exactly what I said they were going to do with the Restrict Act, is that they were going to utilize this against ISPs, hold up the power of the justice system and the U.S. government against corporations and businesses, threaten them with fines if they did not comply, and they're just going to give up the information and the data. And this is what's coming with that. So
I'm going to bring something up on the screen real quick.
Go ahead.
For those that are like, oh, I got to, guess who tweeted about this today? Edward Snowden.
That's it.
And and I'll read what he put because it's very simple. This is the most important thread you will read this year. And it's from Elizabeth Goitian. It's a thread that she put together. It's very, very detailed. And I'll drop the link down in the description. I'll also throw it in the live chat if anybody wants to grab it and take a look at it.
Yeah, it's scary because when we defeated the Restrict Act, I said, watch out. They're going to piecemeal this into other bills. And what they'll do is they'll tie these on to other bills that they know are controversial, which take the mindset off all the minutia that's left in the bill and are controversial, but they know will pass. And that's exactly what they just did with FISA. They could have put it in the Defense Reauthorization Acts, but instead they put it in the FISA one. But this is the type of government tyranny that Thomas Jefferson and Madison, they didn't know about. They couldn't predict this, but this is what they're talking about. And so what we need is we need states to stand up and say that, FISA 702 authorization warrants will not be applicable within these states because they have every right to do that and protect their citizenry. And so what we're seeing here, and everybody's like, well, dude, I'd be talking about the Civil War movie. This is the narrative. You got to see that this is the narrative that's being set.
It's not just a movie, you guys.
That's right. And this is the narrative that's being set. I mean, when I say that the federal government, the DOJ, the NSA is going to spy on you simply because you have an American flag in your yard, you have a Trump 2024 flag, or you showed up at the Capitol building on January 6, 2020, or because you do a podcast, or because you watch a podcast. If I told, doesn't that piss you off a little bit? Pisses me off. But here's the thing is, what are you going to do about it? Well, you're going to do nothing about it until it starts cascading into a problem. And eventually what's going to happen is they're going to come like gorillas in the night. I've said this from the beginning. They're going to come from the top down. They're going to start taking out the generals. And I don't mean the military generals. I mean the people within the influential communities who have rows of people.
Let's pause there because they already took out the military generals. Go all the way back to the Obama administration. And what was it,
198 generals, all conservative in nature, were patriotic constitutionalists, were taken out when Barack Obama won the 2012 election. And this curtails off of the firing of General McChrystal, General Flynn's controversy that was occurring at that time, but also came right after, and this is the interesting part, Edward Snowden. So Edward Snowden goes out there, goes to the NSA. He gets into, so the NSA kind of has a civilian sector and a DOD sector, right? So Snowden went into the DOD aspect of these programs. That's why he was in Hawaii. He was at Hickam, I believe. He was over there because they have an intelligence collection center over there, a big data center over in Hawaii on Waikiki. And he basically exploited that whole program known as Project Prism to the people. Now, what was that project doing? And this is the key to understand for everybody out there why those generals got fired. Remember the NSA was spying on American citizens. They were collecting petaflops of data and storing it on American citizens, cell phone data and everything. And then there was little words they mentioned. They said, and they were spying on congressmen and senators and defense contractors, and they were spying on people within the FBI. And the question is why would they be spying on those people? And what happened prior to that? Right? 2014, we get an NSA tweet, a tweet coming out from the NSA saying this tweet will be deleted. Investigate John Podesta, hash file code, boom. Pizzagate is real. That's interesting. Isn't it a year before? Well, 2012. What did we have? We had Anthony Weiner. An anonymous tip comes into the NYPD that Anthony Weiner is sending naked photos of his penis to 15-year-old girls with proof of it from his phone. He ends up getting arrested. They confiscate his laptop, which had Humid Abedin's insurance policy on Hillary Clinton on it. And this cascades into the whole Pizzagate scandal that begins to happen after this. But this comes after the tale when two reporters, Andrew Breitbart and Michael Hastings, both died of mysterious deaths. And Michael Hastings, the most mysterious, because he was investigating, came out publicly and said, I'm investigating John Brennan to the CIA and this new technology that apparently the CIA has that can remote control your vehicle with new software upgrades that came out in your vehicles and basically crash them and make it look like an accident when it's really an assassination. How did he die? 150 miles per hour into a freaking tree, flaming Mercedes, dies on impact. He's probably dead before that. But we have to understand that these generals, in my opinion, for anybody out there who's new to Q or the Q stuff, and I don't mean to say that because, we're on different channels, but that was what led up to that. This is the military operation that you've all heard about and all this stuff. There is about 198 different generals out there who had opened up special access programs for spying on congressmen, senators, defense contractors, various people within the bureaucracy because of quite a few different events that happened in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, particularly in the late 1990s when Bill Clinton sold U.S. nuclear missile information to China specifically, as well as gave 9 nuclear warheads to Kim Jong-un's father. Okay, so this prompted the military to say, what the hell's going on here? We need to do something about this. The technological infrastructure gets built out and they start spying on them. So they start spying on them through the NSA, through a little program that was specially funded before the Bush administration ended, and it went through the Barack Obama administration. But there were stolen military secrets, and the generals and the admirals wanted to get down to the bottom of it, and then their program of spying on the deep state got exposed. And so they knew they had to do something. And then everything that follows after that, from Flynn to Trump to Q to present day, is everything that's happened after that. It's laid the foundation for everything that we know today. And people have to understand that the reason China has the advanced technology, military technology that they have today is because of us. Is because, number one, Hillary Clinton was sending emails to a Google server that had IP login addresses in proximity to China, geolocated near China. And these emails that she was sending, according to Inspector General McCullough of the intelligence community, when he testified in front of the House Intelligence Committee, said specifically, these are special access programs. I couldn't even get read into these programs. They give me a summary analysis. These are the most top secret weapons programs in our military. What were they? They were the most top secret programs in our military. I speculate and I say that they were reverse engineering of various different types of technologies, most likely alien in nature. The reason that is, Barack Obama, 2008, comes in. He goes in and sets up a few different educational exchange programs with China specifically. One of them is the 10,000 Talents program, the 1,000 Talents program. The day Donald Trump comes into office, he immediately shut down all of those educational exchange programs. The DOJ opens up investigations into various universities and professors. 2018, we start seeing the first arrests. Over the next 2 years, 32 professors at 32 universities are arrested in the United States of America. The one thing that they were all arrested for was tax evasion, because because they had taken money from China, went over to China, specifically Wuhan Institute of Technology, and they were over there multiple different times. Now, the one thing that I found interesting is every single one of these professors was working under a National Science Foundation grant, as well as a DoD grant, DARPA grant, NASA grant, or DOE grant. What does that mean? That is called a special access program that is levied to the universities, and each one, including Dr. Charles Lieber at Harvard University, was working on nanomesh technology, a nanomaterial, synthetic nanomaterial that goes in there, latches onto the ACE2 receptors in your cells. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Latches onto the ACE2 receptors of your cells, acts as a lock and key mechanism, opens up the cells, but also takes the metabolic activity of the cell and produces a piezoelectric effect within the nanomaterial that sends out a wireless signal and powers other nanobots inside your body. That's what he was working on. A few of the other professors, one was working on space materials, various different space materials, iridium, and these types of things. Another one was working on various different types of space propulsion and anti-gravitation. And these were published on these websites. So you got to ask yourself, these were working on special access programs, dealing with space technologies, nanotechnology. Where did we get this technology? Well, how are they working on these special access programs? Well, this is the same shit that we were sending to China through Hillary Clinton. This is why Bill Clinton was getting paid $500,000 for his speech in 2012 and 2013 and 2014, because that was the payback to the Clinton Foundation. So we have to set the narrative to what leads up to this, because at this point, we have to understand, after all of that, and here's the thing, is many of these congressmen and senators, they know exactly what I'm saying right here. And I know that they know because we've talked to a few of them, and they know exactly what we're saying here. And guess what? Well, there's nothing I can do. My hands are tied. And that's not a fucking excuse. Okay. That is a pussy. That's what that is.
Because I remember our forefathers used to kick each other's asses.
That's right. Listen, if you have constituents, that's a small army. Like let's be men here, and let's do it right.
People think don't think I'm being hyperbolic here. Go research the old debates from our Congress, and they used to even use canes. They would there'd be some.
I think there's still a dueling clause in Congress. I'm almost positive there is.
I'm gonna look that up. But no, continue, because I think it's important, because, for those that don't know, Alex Garland, I believe is the director's name. He's made some good movies. 28 Days, Al Machinina. Like chances are you've probably seen some of his films. So this is not a guy that doesn't know how to do films, doesn't know how to do scripts. Yet when you look at this movie, and I don't know Josh's take on this, he may disagree, but let's just forget all the stuff we're talking about, which is extremely important. Let's just say you were just watching it for pure entertainment value. The movie lacks it. Like the cinematography misses on things, misses on emotions on things. Like Josh said, there's voids, there's information that's not there. And when you're dealing with a director like this, one could make the argument that, it's because he didn't want to do it, so the heart wasn't there, plausible. Or one could say he's such a great director that the absence of information was specific to areas where it needed to be absent. Why? So when it unravels in real life, you're filling in that void with what's happening, and you have a reference to something that you saw, which brings us right back to why everything Josh is explaining is you got to understand the foundation of where this movie's being even set up to happen, so you can understand the masterclass propaganda that happens in the hour and 15 minutes following. And I'll give it back to you, Josh.
Well, that was well said. Well, yeah, when we're looking at the movie, Alex Garland and what he's doing there, it's 5GW, man. It's fifth generation warfare. This movie is warfare. Just like Leave the World Behind, the last movie that he did that was premiered on Netflix, it's fifth generation warfare, people. What they are doing is they're not appealing to the entertainment nature of you. They're appealing to the primal animalistic nature of your subconscious mind. That was the whole point of this movie. They want you to, so you understand why they put the gaps in there.
Absolutely.
So for anybody out there who doesn't understand why they don't tell you the storyline, why they don't tell you what this person is, or who the good guys are, or who the bad guys are, because your mind fills in the gaps. You have to, your mind will automatically fill in the gaps when you watch the movie. And that is setting the subconscious narrative into action with the primal fear urge.
It's I'm telling you, it's insanely perfect when you look at it, because before the movie aired on the 12th, there was special VIP premieres and stuff people could see. And I saw a lot of extremely left people with big followings talking about the movie. And they were saying things that I'm like, well, I can't push back on that till I see it. So I'm like, I got to see this, the day before. But I even saw certain, I won't say conservative, kind of conservative profiles putting some things out there. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right. But I saw consistency. And so I'm like, it's one of two things. Either they all got the script, which is, not unlikely, on what to put out there, or it's designed this way, like you're saying. They're going to see it certain way because they're operating off propaganda and information that they've been fed. We're going to see it a certain way because of information and also propaganda that's been fed our way. So it's not unusual in this specific scenario to have two sides doing an analysis and critique of the movie in a way that they truly believe that it is in that movie, only because of what Josh has said, because we're independently filling in those gaps of where they don't put the information. And I'm telling you, man, that's brilliant from a nefarious side. That's brilliant.
It is. It's like in the movie Leave the World Behind, which I believe was the prequel to Civil War. So in the Alex context of how he would do this is that Leave the World Behind, it starts with a cyber attack. And the cyber attack destabilizes cities, states. The states go to the federal government. The federal government is in the brink of collapse. Whatever is happening there, the economy begins to collapse. Another point from the movie Civil War is, what was the currency? Remember when they go into the store and they try to pay? It's not the dollar. I think it was the Canadian dollar was being used.
Canadian, because she's all 300, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll buy you a ham sandwich," and she's all Canadian, and also he's like, "Oh, so they already referenced that Canadian dollar has value,
more value than the U.S. dollar." Yep. And so Leave the World Behind is where it begins. But if you look into Leave the World Behind, it's gapped as well. Who did this? The cyber attack? Nobody knows. Who's causing the explosions? Who's all the bad guys that he's all worried about? You don't know. And so you have to take this into context, because what this is your belief and your ideology will fill in the gaps. And that's what they want, that extreme point of radicalization. Think about what we have going on in the United States right now, the mass shootings that are occurring, right? We're seeing the return of Islamic radicals. We just had the one Marmari that was attacked, right? The Syrian cleric. I mean, some guy just comes up and do you see what happened there too? He put up his cross, and the guy's knife, a switchblade, didn't open when he went to stab him.
I didn't catch that part.
Oh yeah, here, let me see if I can pull this up.
Because you got the 1-year-old, right?
No. This is
then I'm probably confusing ones, because
Let me pull this up real quick, because this is this is crazy. I like Marmari. Where the hell is it? Yeah, I'll find it here in a second. But he was given a sermon, and he's a Syrian cleric. And he was given a sermon today, and the guy steps up, starts yelling Allah Akbar, and he puts his hand up. And I guess when he put his hand up, he had a cross in his hand. Wow. And the guy's switchblade didn't open. So the first thing he did is he hit him right in the face with a knife. And he started stabbing him in the neck, and the knife wasn't open, dude. Yeah, so let me see if I can find the video here.
Listen, man, divine intervention is divine intervention. Other people may want to call it something else, and that's fine. You guys, while Josh is pulling that up, do us a solid. Wherever you're watching, smash that thumb, smash that like, hit subscribe, and hit share.
Yeah, check this out. So I'm bringing this up right now. There it is. Check this out.
To a church in Wakely in southwest Sydney in relation to reports that a male was stabbing the clergy inside that building. Police responded and arrested a young person, and he was restrained inside that building.
So if
Police
you
male
watch,
was stabbing
hand goes up
the
right
clergy
right at the beginning.
inside that building.
The guy's knife did not open.
You know what? The instant reaction too is the first thing he does is he puts the cross right in front of him,
and the guy's switchblade knife didn't open, and so he got beat in pretty bad. But if you guys don't know who Marmari is, this dude. Listen, I'm not like a Catholic. I'm not like high up there in those types of religious sects. This dude's phenomenal. He is just absolutely amazing. In more ways you can understand. Yeah, you can find him on YouTube, all over the place on YouTube.
Let me take us to the first let me do this.
Yeah.
Before we even get into the scenes, here's an experience I had. I've talked to 2 other people. I know it's not a lot, but if you're in the chat, whatever chat you're on, let us know so we can take a look at it. One, the previews before this movie were long. 35 minutes is what I had in previews. I was like, what? The movie was supposed to start at like 5:05 and it didn't get rocked until 5:40. Like, usually previews are 20 minutes, maybe 25, but 35 minutes of previews. And what was interesting, with the exception of one movie, Bad Boys 3, which is totally badass. I can't wait to see it. But every other movie in the previews that I went to go see and some other people was all dark stuff, man. Like horror movies, an occult movie. Like, it was, like I said, it's anecdotal. That's why I want to pull the audiences here that are listening to see if you did watch it, what was your experience in the previews. It almost seems like they were bringing that frequency and that vibe already to a very low place going into this movie. And I'm just curious to, if people, had that. The other thing, now I've talked to people that said they didn't hear this, but in the beginning of the movie, when it, it kind of starts with her and she's looking at or old photos and memories, I heard a high pitched frequency. Yep. To the point where it concerned me so much. I was like, well, let me just cover one ear just in case this is what they did in the other movie, where that one frequency was actually 3 different frequencies. I don't know if people know that.
Well, in Leave the World Behind, they had 3 subtonal frequencies that were playing there. So they're called, you can look at them as hemisync, but they're isotronic. And isotronic means that you don't need headphones in order to kind of have them synchronize your brain. And how they work is pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, listen, man, there is some mass psychological warfare going on. And I mean, the heart of this, I think that we all understand where this is leading, and it's the inevitable, and that things are going to get much more difficult before they get better. That shit is going to hit the proverbial fan at some point. And what happened this last weekend kind of really sets a precedent for that. In the movie, though, the biggest things I want people to stress is go out and watch the movie. I recommend watching the movie. It's definitely not entertaining. There's not you're not like, I hope this character lives or something. It's not. And
I want to talk about that because that's important too.
Oh, well, who dies?
Well, not about who dies, but what you said. You're never really attached to any character. Like I like movies. Like, I love movies, and I mean, to the point where I watch movies and I get attached to characters. And my movies can really control my emotions because how much I get into them.
Right.
This movie was absent of that. There's certain scenes, and there's probably going to be some spoilers here, you guys. It's what it is. Do our best to minimize it, but there's certain people that die. I won't say who, but there's certain people that die that you would think that normally you would be moved one way, either for it or against it, and you're not. You're just and even like I said, back to the cinematography of it. Even the moment doesn't really build to catch it. It's just like, oh, they're dead. Let's move on. And that dehumanization is the way I see that.
Kirsten Dunst's character. Who do you think Alex Garland modeled her after? Think about
Laura Logan.
There it is.
Here, let me bring.
He modeled her after Laura Logan, dude.
Okay.
I don't know if Laura. I should text Laura that. Be like, did they hit you up for this?
Well, here's the other thing, and we'll skip ahead and we'll do some Pulp Fiction stuff here because I like the way this is flowing. But the reason I'd put this up in my particular part of the post was they build the movie around these journalists, and they're all former mainstream media journalists, with the exception of the young girl. The young girl in that picture, she's an aspiring Lee, aka Laura Logan. I think we should tell her, man. And they're kind of painting the picture like these are the seekers of truth. You know, these are the ones that want to go and capture this moment. And what do we all know? Like, hell no, the mainstream media lies to us. They divide us. You know, they suppress information. They withhold the truth. Like, it's the opposite. Yet this movie, you know, everything's built around them. And it once again, that predictive programming, that MK Ultra, planting the seeds that, hey, when you know, when the shit hits the fan, you know, it's the mainstream media is what you're gonna have to rely on when this comes. They're the ones that are gonna know, which you were not. And I'm with you on this. I think people need to go watch it because it's my opinion. Predictive programming, MK Ultra, all that, it's not gonna work if you're aware of it. You know, that's kind of my position.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. And so if you go in there knowing that this movie is designed to try to affect you, I think you got a good guard against it. But one of the reasons I think it's important to watch is so you can experience the fact that this is what this masterclass of programming looks like. and you can educate your family. You know, like dive into it and think of it as control, as like in the military. It's a controlled environment of danger. and that's how you build the skill set to deal with it, because there's going to come a point where this happens and you don't realize that it's predictive programming, but all of a sudden things are going to click and you'll be like, oh, back off. I see what's going on here and you ain't going to get me. And I think that's why it's important for people to go and see this movie.
Do you want to know how fast it unfolds? For people out there, I want people to understand this situation, something that happened this last weekend, of how fast this type of stuff goes from every day talking to your neighbor to civil war. Did you see the video of the guy that was getting his truck hijacked and he shot into the window at the one dude?
Yes.
And the guy backed up and they're all just walking across the street like, what an asshole. And they're like, oh my God. Boom. Kills the dude instantly by hitting him. That's how fast this stuff happens in society. 1 minute you're videotaping this, the next minute you're like, I just witnessed a murder. Oh my God. And that is going to be the start of it all. That's going to be the next George Floyd setup type of situation to where riots break out, and then riots break out at all different cities. Then you have sleeper cells come about. Then you have from sleeper cells, you have cartel wars, and you have the destabilization of the states, and the destabilization of the states look to the federal government. The federal government is bought and sold for, and it all breaks out. And this, it happens with those one singular events. There's always that one singular event, and it's symbolic in nature. And see, Alex Garland lets you fill in the blanks with your own mind.
One of the reasons that's so important, and I'm trying to see if I used to have a marker on it. I'll summarize it and then I'll look for it while you're talking. But dehumanization is very critical in what's going on in the propaganda world, or the fifth generation war that's going on right now, because the next step is killing. That's the next stage, and I think it's the last stage or the second to the last stage is the killing. But prior to that, it's dehumanization. And when you look at all the world events of what's been going on, and I think we've talked about this before, or maybe in a space, we've as a global society, we've already acclimated to this, and we'll use and I don't care what anybody's position is. I'm just using it as an example. Look at Israel and Palestine.
I was about to say it.
Whatever side you're on, both sides are justifying the death of the other side, whether it's kids, elderly, civilians, it's being justified. And you go back 60, 70 years, you're not going to have that openingness. You know, it's going to feel awkward to say that. We don't have that right now in society. That's the dehumanization. And this video, and I think I have it saved in a bookmark, and I'll bring it up so people can see it. It's graphic as hell. The scene that Josh is talking about, the carjacking that turned into a fatal collision. One of the things, and you see this in a lot of videos, not just this one, the guy's shooting and people aren't running. They're not scattering. They're just, people are recording.
Yep.
Like, because people have just become acclimated to this. That's dangerous.
So
because if that stuff doesn't scare us and we just accept that as the norm, The final stage is killing. And while you're talking, I'll look for that section. So
Go back to Vancouver last year where the one guy gets stabbed 29 times in the Starbucks. And people just stood there and watched it happen. And then he dropped down and died and people walked away. It's the dehumanization aspect of it. And one thing I want to say for people out there is name me the 3 most popular video games right there that are multi-platform, multiplayer. The top 2 that I can think of are Modern Warfare and Fortnite. And Grand Theft Auto. There you go. Modern Warfare, Grand Theft Auto, and Fortnite. Now, what does Fortnite do? They give you these funny looking guns and stuff like that, and you can go out there and it's fun. It's fun to go kill people and stuff like that. Same thing with Modern Warfare. Same thing with Grand Theft Auto. Is they glorify this aspect of death, but also downplay the death because you respawn. And so this is the mentality that kids are growing up within. And this is why people stand there and watch someone get stabbed 29 times and then just go about their business sipping their coffee.
And I found it. So for those that, if you have the book, it's the first one, 5GW, it's chapter 3, section 3. And it says, this sounds brutal. How to make people kill people. It says influencing people to kill others happens in 4 phases. Phase 1, polarization. Phase 2, tribalization. Phase 3, dehumanization. And then phase 4, killing. I mean,
phase 3 right now, baby.
And that's why, and people need to realize that this is not by chance, man. And if this is when they're, they knew when this movie was going to come out. They know the timing of it. I mean, you've done a great job of telling us how important dates are, how important, the solar system plays into the positioning of our stars, like everything, whether you believe it or not, they do. And so you better at least understanding that they believe it. Now I want to take us to something, I think it was early on in the thread that I made, and I'll bring it up on the screen. One of the main opening scenes from the first few moments, and like I said, what was shown in this movie and what was absent in this movie were things that I really paid attention to. This is the only scene in the movie where you see law enforcement, the only scene where you see police. And it's the NYPD, or at least they're hinting to the NYPD based off the patches. And you have the locals there that everybody's trying to get water, and then it just breaks out into chaos. There's an explosion, cops die, people die, and you're just left with being pissed off at the cops because you're like, they just wanted water. So the one and only time that they show police in this movie is at the beginning. They leave you with hating them and they never introduce them ever again. So there's check the box, hate the cops. It's a Civil War movie, and you would think that you're going to have cops throughout the entire movie. No, they're not there. So, I don't know if you have any take on that, but that was something, obviously, my prior career, that thing stuck out to me a lot.
So I've talked about this a few different times on my show in the sense of what happens in the first few weeks of all this, right? Number one, I want to give Hevsky over on Rumble, big shout out, $17 super chat there. Alpha and Josh, great show. More partnership shows would be great. So Alpha, we're getting thumbs up about doing these. It's awesome. So I always have to lay, so if you guys are new to me, I have to lay a foundation for everything, but understand 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate went missing from a moving train last year between Utah and California, and nobody has any freaking clue what happened to it. Over 400 police uniforms were stolen out of a dry cleaners in Pennsylvania. In Missouri. Go ahead.
Just to go back to how many pounds again?
It was 60,000 pounds.
60,000 pounds. Have you heard the excuse of what they say happened now?
They're saying it dripped out one piece at a time.
That it's slowly. I'm like, get out of here.
It's
what?
It's absolute bullshit.
60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate just dripped out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If that was truly the case, you could run our police canines, our explosive dogs.
Oh, yeah.
And they would be able
to, you could go out there and ignite it in the whole railroad track for 400, 500 miles. Like, it's bullshit. Yeah. So you had the 400 police uniforms, the 400 police military vests. You had a military armory locker that was raided with over 400 weapons taken. Okay. 400. we have problems within our major cities. The biggest problems that we have is the influx of illegal immigrants. Look what's happening right now in New York City. New York City is being overrun by Venezuelan gangs, MS-13, and various different cartels that are taking over the crime syndicate within these cities. This comes about because the Biden administration and these radical lefty state governors are allowing it to happen. The question is why are they allowing it to happen? Here's the key faction that you have to know. In the first days that all this happens, martial law will be immediately implemented. By the time that you hear about martial law, you only have about 12 to 18 hours to get to where the hell you're going to get. I hope you know that. National Guard has already been mobilized. If you know somebody in the National Guard, you're like, dude, I just got mobilized. Don't know my orders. What is going on? You get going then. That's when you start moving, okay? But once you hear martial law has been declared, Joe Biden, blah, 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 you have 12 to 18 hours before the back roads, right? You can't get out of the back roads. State highways, interstates, they're already shut down at that moment that you're hearing that notification, okay? So know where you need to go and have a plan to get there. But at that point in time is when social destabilization is going to begin to set in. And if it had not already set in, it's going to take one catalyst event, whether it's a cyber attack. Today, the National Weather Service, all of their radars across the United States of America stopped working. Does anybody understand how improbable and concerning that is? By the way, in case you didn't know, the National Weather Service has a DoD contract to utilize their weather services as another aspect of the U.S. ballistic shield defense system in the United States utilized by NATO. Okay? That's how bad that is. Your radars don't all of a sudden all just go down. It doesn't happen like that. You're talking about thousands and thousands of different generators with secondary power supplies. Okay? That's a cyber attack. That's a big cyber attack. But the U.S. is downplaying it. They're not releasing this information. You have an arms depot in Pennsylvania that blew up today, went on the fire. We had the bridge over there that just collapsed. Now the FBI opens the investigation. The FBI raided the ship this morning. So apparently they're finding information of that this was a criminal activity. The FBI opened the criminal activity. They raided the ship this morning. Shocking. So yeah, shocking, right? So what we're seeing is the downplaying of various different cyber activities. I've talked about this, that I believe that this is going to be it. There's 6 critical points in the U.S. power grid infrastructure. There are certain components in our grid that if these one points were taken down individually, they would take out sections of the United States at a time. In 2018, the Northeast, New England states had their power turned off for quite a few days or weeks during the winter time when a power outage occurred. Now, the power outage was blamed on one specific component device that in 2008, the manufacturing of that component device was shipped off over to China. And China has a 6-month backlog on those devices, which means what they had to do is they had to strain another power grid in the United States, take off their secondary supply, bring that over there just to get that up, which means that they're both working with no redundancy. So that's how they got that back up. But those 6 critical points in the United States electric grid infrastructure, if taken out properly, would completely turn our whole country dark. Now, what did we see over the last few years? We've seen these crazy guys with 308s, 30-odd 6s going out there to the side of the road, and they're sitting there aiming at one specific component on the electric grid, taking a shot at it from the road. We had in 2014 in California, 2 illegal immigrants were arrested for specifically that with high-powered rifles, and then they were eventually let go by the state of California and never to be found again. I believe they're Chinese nationals. So we have to understand is something like that is going to kick this off. It's going to be a leave the world behind type of event. Martial law will be initiated and declared. This is what happens in your cities. The gangs, the criminal syndicates, the terrorizers, they take over. And they take over relatively fast. It becomes chaos and nightmarish almost overnight. Here's the problem. Your cops, your law enforcement, do not have the manpower to deal with that. Even when they were fully forced and fully trained, they don't have the manpower to deal with that. Please understand that.
Here's the other thing. And for those that don't know, I did it for 14 years. Your law enforcement agencies to add to what Josh is saying, you're not built like a fire department. It's a shift schedule. So on something like this, all hands are going to get called on deck, and you'll have that for 72 hours.
Yep.
But after that, the cops are going to start to realize, hey, this isn't an immediate fix. There's a longevity here. I still got a family to look out for too, and I'm the only one capable of taking care of them. You're going to have an absence of law enforcement, everybody. That's the truth. I hate to break it to you, and there might be cops in the chat saying, no, I'm going to do my job. You're not going to be doing your job if you think your kids and your wife are going to get kidnapped and raped and murdered. You're going to be at home to protect them.
Now go back to the Miami Mall. You're going to get an all call. You'll have a night where you get an all call. They'll all show up, and what happens is, just like what happened in Minneapolis, they go to the police station. They burn down the police station. They break into the armory and the vaults, and they wipe them clean. And that's when the real warfare begins. And for anybody out there like, well, the National Guard would be called in. The National Guard is not going to have the capacity or the manpower to get in place when crime syndicates begin taking over cities in the United States. They are unmatched. Well, the U.S. military will get called in. That's what we're seeing right now, and the point that you have to understand why we're having a 2-fronted to 3-fronted war that is breaking out in the Middle East, in Eastern Europe, and potentially in the South China Sea. That's why they need that war before any of this stuff happens, because you have to have the military depleted and deployed.
And somebody, as a matter of fact, I'll throw it up on the screen. Somebody says, Alpha, that's why we have guns. Absolutely. But having guns is not enough. You got to have a plan, because you don't have an infinite supply of ammunition, everybody. And the other thing is, you can be overwhelmed. And that's why when Josh says you got to have a plan, you got to have plans, and you got to have contingencies. And this isn't fear porn. This is education, because me and Josh are both from the military. A lot of you are. Your brain is going to go, your body's going to go to where your brain has been. And if you ran scenarios, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. You're not going to be caught in fear. You're not going to get overwhelmed with the adrenaline rush. You're going to be composed, and you're going to be able to do what you need to do to protect yourself or those that entrust their lives to you. That's what's important here, because the writing's on the wall. This whole review and breakdown of this movie is to help explain the writing's on the wall. They're selling this movie as being, apolitical, and you can see that from away. However, when you know where to plug in information, you realize it ain't apolitical at all. It's very strategic. For example, they don't say who the president is. Right? Nope. They don't even tell you if he's a Democrat or a Republican. They don't give you any of that information, but they do make a statement. And there's one particular part where the black journalist, I don't remember his name, if it was Steve or whatever it was, but he's like the old timer, and he's talking to the journalist that's, they're on the way to, he's the one that's going to interview this president. And he goes, don't play softball with them. You better ask him some hard questions. Ask him, if he regrets bombing the American people. Ask him, and here comes, ask him if he regrets that mass deportation that he did. Really? Who's campaigning on that right now?
Mm-hmm. What was the other one? It was the dismantling of the FBI.
Of the FBI. Does he regret dismantling? So, yeah, they may have not said Trump's name, but they pointed out his campaign things. So it was very clear who that was. Here's the other one. And I'm curious to your take on this one, because, I could be wrong on this one. I'm open to that. Antifa is mentioned in this movie. Yep. When they're talking about, the journalist Lee, aka Laura Logan, and, the younger's talking about her. And she goes, oh, I remember because on the onset, when all this stuff's breaking down, she goes, I remember all the photos you took of the Antifa massacre. Now, and they never mention it again. Now, here's what I find interesting. It's the absence of things in this movie. And this is where I'm going with this one. It's a civil war. So you would think you're going to see the metropolitan areas. You think you're going to see like the downtown areas, the barrios, the hoods, the ghettos. You don't ever see that. You see the rural areas, and you see some of the, the little downtown areas of like the countryside America. Well, you don't see Antifa in those areas at all. The Antifa's absent. But MAGA, America First, is pretty prevalent in those areas. I think that was actually a shot across the bow of a warning, and replace the word Antifa with MAGA. MAGA massacre is how that's how my gut took that one, man.
I think that you could be right on that. But I mean, that is predictive programming that they would do, right? I wanted to just show this for you because you said something in it. I'm like, hey, dude, look at my quote I have up there.
You gotta read it for me. It's a little.
This is the FDIC chief says that the U.S. is ready to handle the collapse of any major Wall Street bank. So this is basically Kramer coming out and telling you to invest in Google because it's going to go to the moon. So you better short it because the banks are about to collapse. And I came out here and I said, I have seen the writing on the wall, Pink Floyd. And that's what you were just saying. I've seen the writing on the wall, and you're absolutely right. That, guys, the writing on the wall is there. This is being laid out like clockwork. One thing I do, Alpha, you know this, is I look at the narrative and I pearl string it together to kind of know and understand what's going to happen next. And I always say, I don't want to be right. And I keep on getting fucking right. I mean, did you see my post the other day about Iran?
Yes, I did.
What did I say?
I think I texted you and said you called it.
Saturday.
Yes.
Saturday, April 6th to April 16th, Saturday. It'll happen on a Saturday. Happen on a Saturday. How did we know that? Well, there's reasons why I know that. But, and we called October 7th. We called the U.S.'s response to Iran on the Friday. We called it 1 or 2 hours away. I said 4 p.m. on that Friday. It happened at 6 p.m. Oh, no, I said 6 p.m. on that Friday. It happened at 4 p.m. I was 2 hours away, but that was my first shot at like doing it on the hour. It wasn't bad, but
pretty damn. Unfortunately impressive.
Yeah, unfortunately impressive. Exactly. I want to touch on this real quick because I just made this point when we were talking about the cities, and I think that this is important that people kind of understand that my internet just died. Oh, there we go. We're back now. You ever had your ex just die on you?
I'm just like, what kind of funky business they pull in. If you guys are late to the show and you're just joining, do us a solid favor. You're watching this on multiple platforms. Wherever you're watching, go down there, hit that like button, smash that thumbs up, leave a comment, get in the live chat, meet some new people, develop some new friends, some new relationships, and definitely share this out because you got two guys on here that we're not going to sugarcoat stuff. We're not going to exaggerate stuff. You're going to get some raw truth here. You're going to get some very good plausible theories. And the guy that's next to me over here, I'm telling you, unfortunately, he's right a lot on these things. So if you're not following redpills.tv, I suggest you guys run over there and start following them. You ready for me to bring this up?
Yeah, dude, bring this up. I want to touch on this real quick. So do you remember who Scott Ritter was?
Yes, I do.
Major Marine Corps, former NATO weapons inspector. He's the one that came out and said there was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And then he got hammered by the CIA.
Yep.
So he was on Clayton Morris's Redacted earlier today. And this is what he said. He said, this is Scott Ritter, former NATO's weapons inspector, whistleblower, and Marine Corps major, joined Clayton Morris on Redacted to talk about the Iranian missile strike on Israel and how the U.S. and Israel are downplaying its significance. This guy is a fucking military weapons expert, people. I don't think there's really anybody in the world that goes out on television who's any more of an expert in the field of the type of weapons that Iran, Iraq, and Israel and all of them have. I mean, the Middle East was his expert location of where he worked for NATO, okay? So he came out and he said, Iran took a strategic deterrence posture in its retaliatory attacks on Israel. We discussed this. So I went on a space before it all happened, and we had good confirmation from some sources that we have that Iran actually contacted the United States through proxy 24 hours prior. They gave them target information. They said, we're going to hit here and we're going to hit here. We're going to limit civilian collateral, and we don't want there to be any deaths. That's what Iran said. He said, we have to do this. We have to be retaliatory, but this is what we're going to do. And so they give Israel 24 hours to prep. Okay. And how many civilians died? 0, by the way. For anybody out there who's wondering, well, in Gaza, we got to kill the civilians because that's where the terrorists are. Okay. Listen, 0 civilians died in the Iranian missile strike, and I hope you understand that because they hit very strategic targeting. Okay, so no Israeli officials will confirm, but the talk is that the Israeli intelligence facility that specifically collected Syrian intelligence and was responsible for the calls on the Damascus consulate that killed the 13 Iranians was hit with high-level precision. 13 Israelis died, from what we gather. Okay? That was the only facility that Iran hit with force. And guess what? The Iron Dome did nothing to stop it. Keep that in mind. Iran hit a warehouse and 2 runways on the Nevatim Air Force Base. This has been downplayed by Israel and the West as missed targets. But according to the sources, Iran didn't escalate a war, but instead wanted to send a message that they can hit with precision targets inside the most heavily guarded ballistic missile base in the world. The problem with the downplay is that Iran hit 2 runways and a warehouse dead center with precision, the exact 3 targets that they told the United States and Israel that they were going to hit exactly where they were going to hit them, people. I hope you understand what I'm saying here. This was Iran showing the U.S. and Israel that their ballistic missile defense system was useless against Iranian missile technology, which was specifically designed to break through the Iron Dome. The Nevatim Air Base houses the U.S. ANTPY-2 X-band radar, which is part of the U.S. ballistic missile defense system. This radar is specifically designed to detect Iranian missiles. Among other targets hit were the Iron Dome turrets. Scott goes on to say how the U.S. is not wanting to get involved in this conflict, but Israel, mainly Netanyahu, is in a forced position to retaliate. Israel alone cannot defeat Iran, but needs U.S. support. Biden has confirmed the U.S. would not assist Israel in any retaliation. But here's the key. They will not assist in retaliation, but if Iran restrikes, again, the United States will be involved in this war, and the whole Middle East will be encapsulated into warfare. And see, Joe Biden can't afford this right now because of the election year. Warfare is never good in election year. Number 2 is Bibi has to do this. If he doesn't, he loses power and he gets indicted. Okay, like this is critical for his power base. So
I would not put it past him to do something so outlandish, to force Iran to do something so outlandish to position Biden to where he don't have a choice.
That's right. And here's the good thing is Iran and the United States are actually talking through proxy. China is stepping in with Iran and the U.S., but it's really now, people, it is in Israel's hand. But I want people to know, you have the Iron Dome, and they showed the Iron Dome, 99 out of 100 drones were shot down and 99% precision, and none of the ballistic missiles hit. One ballistic missile hit the intelligence facility. We got this on good word, completely destroyed it. And then Iran, 24 hours prior, gave the targeting information to the United States of America and said, we're going to hit this runway, we're going to hit this runway, we're going to hit this warehouse. No civilian assets or collateral or casualties. And they hit them through the Iron Dome with precision, bullseyes. How do they do it? They have a missile technology that goes out there, and when the Iron Dome begins to engage, the missile and the warhead separate, and then the rocket begins to basically throw chaff out for the Iron Dome. And then the warhead begins to target and changes trajectory and drops at 90-degree angles. The Iron Dome can't stop it. And basically, they show the obsolescence of the U.S. missile defense shield, which should scare the United States because that means that every U.S. naval ship in that area, in the Persian Gulf, in those whole areas, are vulnerable. And that is not a good thing. And if Iran has that technology, China has that technology. Russia has that technology. And that's a huge warning for the West. And I think that that's exactly why this happened. Now, is Israel going to be stupid enough to retaliate? I think what they're going to do is they're going to hit Syrian, Yemeni targets. That would be the best thing they can do. They can go out there and just start bombing the shit out of the Houthis, out of Hezbollah. They can go back into Gaza, excite it all there, and just leave Iran alone. That would be the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is they hit Iranian nuclear facilities and all hell breaks loose. Now, what I want people to understand is what the scenario that happens. The Middle East war, you're going to immediately see $135 gas prices because what Iran is going to do and what what Israel is going to do and what Iran is going to do is they're going to start hitting energy producing targets. They're going to start hitting Saudi oil fields. They're going to start hitting Iranian oil fields because that's the West and that's the BRICS nations. The United States only has a 17-day supply of a strategic petroleum reserve. If the United States enters this war with no infrastructure developed in the United States for the refinement of petroleum, which Joe Biden completely eliminated after Donald Trump was booted out of office, right? What's going to happen is that we will not last long in this fight. We're already depleted from supporting Ukraine in proxy over the last few years. Our militaries are out there sucking dildos on walls and getting sex change operations, and a lot of them are vaxxed and not in good condition. This is not the time that we need to go to war, but what they're trying to do is promulgate and prompt people into war. People have heard about the reauthorization of the inactive ready reserve units. I've seen some people go like, I just got my letter. That's all bullshit. They haven't recalled anybody. They're going to recall Alpha before they recall anybody else. Okay, dude? So you'll hear it here first, I promise you. But that will be a reality. Veterans will be the first ones called up. Veterans, then draft. When that happens and they deploy to the European theater or the Middle Eastern theater or the South China Sea theater.
Guess who's here already?
Guess who's here already, and guess how the shit hits the proverbial fan.
And
that's when that all begins.
And you just sent away every defense mechanism that this country needs. The 11 million people coming across the southern border is not people seeking the American dream. That was a mobilization.
Yep.
But what you just heard Josh explain to you, that's a mobilization. And everything that Josh talked about, this is not a failure of our system. It was designed to happen this way. Getting rid of the generals, designed. Changing the metal that we build our ships with, by design. Putting these poisons into our troops, by design. Forcing the leaders in our military to say, hey, I'm not doing this and I'm leaving, by design. All this is by design to put us in the weakest possible position that should we choose, because the one thing our adversaries have known historically was you can't take on America in a kinetic war if America's at its strongest. And if America's, maybe they can do 2 fronts, they're definitely not going to do 3. So what would you do? You would spend 20 years before a major conflict just weakening America as much as possible to include the military, and we're there to include the everything you just talked about, our energy, if you don't got no fuel and oil, you guys, all you have is ships turn into buoys.
Get 2 fucking sticks in a campfire is what you got.
Yep. And tanks turn into camping spots. That's it. You can't move. And then you're a sitting target. Like you can't do nothing without fuel and oil. And it just,
so people are beginning to see, right, why all of these things are happening all at the same time. Now, did you see the videos come out this weekend? I want to touch on this because number one is I'm not a believer in some things. There's some conspiracy theories I don't go down the road because I know where they started and how they originated. Did you see the blue things flying from the sky going to the Delaware River? Did you see all this stuff? Did you see the Jesus thing flying from the sky?
Yes.
Guys, you asked me a year ago if Project Bluebeam was real. I would tell you absolutely not. It was 100% a psyop and bullshit. It was created by a guy in 1998. David Whitehead, my good buddy, has done videos on this, how it's all garbage. You have Dr. Roslin, who was Werner von Braun's lab assistant, who never said anything about Bluebeam or holograms. I think what we just witnessed there was Bluebeam technology. 100%. What you just witnessed there with those blue things flying out of the sky, going in the rivers, when they had one in Arizona on April 1st, another one the other day on April 4th in Pennsylvania, and then we have this Jesus figure flying out of the sky. These are Bluebeam technology. They are prepping for something. My thoughts. Go ahead.
It's off topic, but I'm curious. You saw this. I'm in Southern California. So just to put in perspective, you guys, to the west of me, 90 minutes is Los Angeles. To the south of me, 2.5 hours is San Diego. Camp Pendleton in between those two, about 2.5 hours because going through the mountains. Yeah, Oceanside, baby. You got 29 Palms. That's about 1 hour and 40 minutes northwest of me. And then you have the Arizona border, Lake Havasu, all that about 2 hours from me, like just to kind of put it in perspective where I'm at. My brother calls me up, and I want to say this was Saturday, maybe Friday night or Saturday. And he's like, go outside, go outside. He's terrible with communication skills, and he's probably watching right now. You work on your communication. And I'm like, what am I looking for? Look up. So essentially, and I missed it, but he grabbed some photos of it. But he goes, there's a string of like lights that are moving. And I'm like, oh, it's probably satellites or something like that. And he goes, no, man, it's low. Like, it's low. And so, you know, I can't look at it. Well, come to find out that everybody's saying, oh, now they're telling us it was Starlink that came across. But the photos that he did send to me, dude, it did look low. Like, it looked like, I'm talking like not very much higher than what you would see like airplanes. And I'm like, so was it Starlink or?
Well, you had some balloons. You had some of the there was people detecting balloons over California this last weekend. Someone actually sent me, they're going to send me some images. They said, hey, my brother took all these pictures. They're going to send me the images.
Yeah, it's probably the same thing then.
Yeah, it might be the same thing. And it reminds me of what happened in Arizona back in the 90s.
Oh, those orangish lights that were like in triangles.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I
said
remember.
Were flares, but they absolutely were not. I mean, come on, the Army can freaking keep track of that type of shit. I had an experience in San Diego very similar where we had objects. Dude, we were out 100 miles out. So we were in international waters. So we go out 100 miles off of San Diego's international waters. That's kind of where we do all of our operations when you're in the Navy. And we pulled in just enough where we had cell phone signal. And like it was December 28th. It was my birthday, 2007. And I was looking, we were about 30 of us outside the smoke deck, and we're looking up, and I see these lights flying in formations like this. And someone's like, what are you doing, Reed? Looking for UFOs? I'm like, I'm watching them right there. And everybody just looked up and like, what the fuck are those things? And they started going like this, and then they crossed like that, and they started kind of moving like this, to the point where one of the department heads got on the horn, called up the bridge, and they're calling over to NORAD and stuff, like, what is going on up there? Like, we don't know. That's space. That's not us. And they had no clue. It was crazy. 2 days later on New Year's Eve, or 3 days later on New Year's Eve, someone videotaped 6 lights outside of their window right over the Pacific Ocean.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, doing all these formations. Like, that's them. That was exactly what we were seeing. So look, there's a lot of weird stuff like that. I think that stuff is more real. Like there's something really going on there. But I think what we witnessed this last weekend with the Jesus figure coming down, if you haven't seen this, you can go to our Twitters and you can see this. And these blue lights, I think that these are blue beam. I really do. And I think that what we're preparing for, Alpha.
Well, let me throw my guess out there, and then you can shoot me down because I'm listening to you. Is there's enough conspiracy in our country that if they throw Project Bluebeam out there, I think there's enough of us. Granted, they don't unplug the internet on us, right? That there's enough of us that I think we're pretty quick to get everybody out there to at least create the doubt. However, if we knew that we were outgunned by technology that Russia and Iran and China has, would we use Project Bluebeam on those countries to make those locals think that some religious thing is unfolding to create chaos there while we try to figure out what the heck we're going to do as far as a defense or an offensive measure with our military?
Have you watched 3 Body Problem on Netflix?
Not yet. Okay, it's
I'm not going to ruin. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. I'm only 5 episodes in. I have not watched the whole thing. 3 Body Problem.
3 Body Problem.
Okay, so 3 Body Problem. Li Wenzhong, she's her father succumbs to the Chinese Communist Party, killed by Mao. She fights them, resists, and basically she gets enslaved by them. She's a physicist. They put her working at a radio lab looking for extraterrestrial signals. She gets the WOW signal that comes in the 1970s. She sends back a reply, and somebody from this extraterrestrial civilization says, please don't reply. They will come and you won't like what they do. And she goes, no, let them come. We cannot help ourselves anymore. And so she basically sells out the human race. And so this begins this communication with this alien race. and they start giving like these radicals, like Klaus Schwab's technology to develop. And they start using it to kind of prep everybody in the world for these aliens' arrivals in 400 years. But ends up what happening is the aliens suppress the science because they don't want humanity increasing their science to the point where they overtake them in development. So they begin sabotaging science all around the world, and people begin dying slowly. But the alien race is viewed as the savior, the humanity. And so this is what I want people to understand about what I think that they're going to do. All hell is absolutely going to break out. Shit is going to hit the proverbial fan. We're going to have banking crises, collapses. We're going to have riots. We're going to have civil war to some degree. We're going to have global economic collapse. We're going to have World War III breaking out, multi-fronted warfare. And then the heavens are going to open up. And that's going to be the savior. And who it's going to be is who's been here all along. That's what I want you to know. Who that's going to be, that's going to come out of the sky and say, stop your fighting, and we're the peace bringers, and shaking hands and lovey-dovey and everything like that. They are the ones that have been here all along, people. I'm telling you.
Somebody sent me a video. I'm searching for it. I'll play it at the end of the show. That'll take us back to something with the eclipse. It'll be interesting. I'd like to get your take on it. You know, it's not too lengthy. I will bring us back to Civil War because I want to bring something up in the movie. Here, let me bring it up on the screen so people can see this. In the movie, it talks about these different alliances, the Western forces, you know, being the main one that they're talking about. But then they also mentioned the Loyalist states and the Florida Alliance. And I remember, you know, because they just briefly show it, and I remember thinking, why does that map look like familiar to me? I'm like, you know, it just the shading and everything looks familiar to me. So I, out of curiosity, I go, let me go look at the 2020 electoral map.
Oh my God.
And I'm just like, wow. I'm like, hold on here real quick. Like, they really made this thing, you know, pretty damn like similar to thing. And just once again, you know, this predictive technology, this MK Ultra stuff. This was in the movie. I don't know if you want to share any thoughts on that.
Well, you know, they don't say it in there that it's politically, ideologically motivated, but I think we all understand is what I think. So you go back to the Antifa part of it, right? The Antifa massacre, and you think that potentially could be symbolic of the MAGA massacre. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, because it very well could be symbolic, allegorical of the MAGA massacre, quote unquote. But I think that the portrayal of a lot of the groups in this is different levels of radicalism. I think that you have one side as white nationalists, that's what's being portrayed. The white nationalist is one side, so it's the extreme right. And then it's everybody else. It's everybody else that's fighting for the good in a sense, right? And so I kind of, and I think that what they show is that a lot of this started with 3 groups fighting, and one of those groups gets completely eliminated. Now, I don't know if that's a ploy to the left, to where just sit down, young kids. This is not good for you. You will not win this one. Sit down. Go home.
Tap out.
Right. Tap out.
Tap out before it starts.
But I don't know if that's like a ploy to them or something like that. But I think what we're seeing is that there was 3, now there's 2. And the 2 seem to be very, very radical, but also I believe that the ones that's portrayed in the sense of the white nationalists are the militia infrastructure in the United States. It seems to be a collaborative of the militia infrastructures of the United States because they're trained, they're veterans, predominantly white, and they're tactical. They know what they're doing. They have the gear. And so that shows a level of training. And so I think that is the level of portrayal that they're trying to bring about with that, is that it's veterans, right-wing extremist groups, militia groups that have all bonded together in that essence.
That's freaking, I don't, Give me 1 second. I'm gonna look for one more thing. If I don't find it, then I'll give up. I really wanted you guys to be able to take a look at this.
And guys, if you're watching on Red Pill Project, if you go to the description box, you can find Alpha's channel right there. It's the alphawarriorshow.tv, the alphawarriorshow.tv. You can see it right under his name that says Alpha right there on the screen as well. Go on over, give him a follow. Go on over to his Twitter, give him a follow over there. It definitely does help when you guys follow us. It means the world to us. I know that, but likes, comments, shares, those types of things. That's how the algorithm works. That's how it gets us out there. So much appreciated for everybody out there that's watching and listening tonight and hitting those like buttons. Appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. I can't find it. So what I'll do is when I find it, I'll send it to Josh so he can share it with his people or post it on his profile. I'll post it. But essentially it's a pretty wild take, but I'm kind of open to a lot of things on what really unfolded. And he was kind of using the basis on the clips where the moon wasn't really where it's supposed to be when the eclipse took place. And he was talking about what CERN was really doing and kind of some things that opened up this communication. And it lines up with this thing you're talking about, the three-body
problem.
Three-body problem. You're describing that. I'm just like, hey, that sounds so similar to this post that this guy put out there. You want me to bring this up on the screen?
I do. So I saw this video today. This is kind of concerning. So the synthetic opioids are going around right now. But you remember how the article came out a few weeks ago about people seeing demons?
Mm-hmm.
Then we had a few people actually reporting seeing demons. Someone said, hey, what if that woman on the plane, that's actually what she saw, but she pulled back because of the criticism. I said, oh my God, that's pretty crazy. This is a woman on these synthetic opioids, or is it? And I want people to be the judge of this. I don't need to play the volume, but watch this video. This is this woman on synthetic opioids. I'm going to pause it here in a second, and I want you to look at something.
Oh, shit, bro.
What the fuck is that?
That's what's going to keep me up tonight, bro. That's what, damn.
You know what, dude?
That's
what is that?
That's evil, bro. That's evil.
Yeah.
Listen,
that is.
I spent my career with people on the wildest drugs, to include bath salts.
Mm-hmm.
And bath salts make some people do some funky shit. I've never seen that, man.
No.
I've never seen that.
But imagine if that got into the water supply. Just now, you know where the death fields come from. Civil War.
I was, I do the Operation Gladio stuff with Colonel Towner, and we're talking about Jonestown. It'll be airing this Wednesday for those that want a little, little tip right there. That's what we'll be discussing as far as Operation Gladio on Wednesday. But in the conversation of this, we're talking about FEMA, and you remember back when all the videos were coming out of all those coffins?
Yeah, Alex Jones.
Yeah, and you're talking thousands of them.
Endgame.
Yeah, thousands of them.
Still got them.
Well, yeah. What were they planning on? What do they know?
Well, I think that a lot of that was getting prepared for Hillary's 2016 run. So, do you remember the 16-year plan?
Yes, I do.
So, 16-year plan, 8 years of Barack Obama, 8 years of Hillary Clinton. The first 2 years of Hillary Clinton, we go to war with Russia, creates a global conflict. The first 2 years of that war bring about a pandemic, which wipes out 50% of the United States population. So I think that those FEMA coffins at that point in time were prepping for that specifically. I think that when Donald Trump comes out and says that I saved 200 million Americans' lives, I don't think he was lying. I think that whatever was going to happen with Hillary Clinton, they stopped it to a large degree. They couldn't stop the release of it, but they did something to stop the power of whatever is being put out there. At least that's my thoughts on it. But they still have those coffins. They still have all of that, and they've been doing a lot of various different national exercises. Game Tech, our buddy, Game Tech,
yeah,
and Game Tech has been big on this. He's been dropping info on it. That DHS connections have been coming forth talking about the weird training that they've been doing in these various different exercises they've been doing in cities. preparing for mass casualty weather and extreme cataclysmic events. Tornadoes, hurricanes, but mass casualty type of events for FEMA.
And I found it, so I'm going to email this to myself, and I'm going to be able to show you guys.
Sweet.
I'm stubborn, man. I couldn't give up. I couldn't give up. I'm like, I want everybody to take a look at this thing. So let me see.
I want to give a shout out here to Let the Arrest Begin. Thank you, gentlemen. Intel is speculative process at times. Intel is a speculative process at times. Thank you so much. Let's Arrest Begin. Appreciate that on Rumble.
Let me pull this up. All right. Just waiting for the email to come through. So just internet speed time. That's what I'm waiting for right now, everybody. Here we go. Yeah, I don't even want to hear people complain.
I don't either.
I grew up with dial-up, man.
That's right.
What
are you doing? I've been waiting 35 minutes to connect the dial-up, man. I'm going to connect here so I can chat with somebody.
If you never
probably
heard
not real.
Oh, the worst part was when you finally connected, and then your brother, or someone in the house picked up the phone.
Like ASL.
Yes,
ASL, hate sex language.
So
location.
I won't play the whole thing because it's 12 minutes. It actually is longer. I mean, I must have been tired. I thought it wasn't so far, but I'll play a couple minutes of it on the side. If you want me to pause it so you can comment on it, just let me know, and we'll rock that. So let me hit play.
I am a high-level military liaison between the Pentagon and NASA. I'm here as a anonymous whistleblower to tell everyone that what happened on April the 8th was not an eclipse. What happened on April the 8th was called Project Pegasus. It's been in the planning for years. What occurred, not an eclipse, since the moon was beside the sun during it and not crossing it. And also you're both in Pisces. The whole thing is ridiculous, and that's how much credit the government gives all of you, because they'll do something that blatantly wrong, I mean inaccurate, just impossible, and yet they know that Americans, they'll be called conspiracy theorists if they even bring it up. So they do it, and they don't even care. Okay, so what did they do if there wasn't an eclipse? The biggest thing you have to realize is the coincidence, which was no coincidence, of CERN being turned on that day.
It is near impossible to explain or understand for most of us, but monumental nonetheless.
CERN was turned back on that day, and immediately after it was turned on, this is what appeared in the sky above CERN in Switzerland on the 8th. A literal portal was created above CERN, and this was actually predicted, which is one reason why it was filmed by many people who were in the know.
Okay, you're gonna pause it. So that video that he's talking about right there, that didn't happen on April 8th. That was purported to happen in 2014. So in the whole moon and Pegasus thing, so the moon goes through cycles, right?
Right.
So you have a full moon. So think about it like this: is the full moon is when the moon is opposition sun, right? The Earth is in the middle. The sun is over here, and the moon is opposition sun. So it's right over here, but it's reflecting all the sun's light from this position, and the full face of the moon is reflecting it. So it's a full moon. But basically what's happening is the Earth is at a 23.5 degree tilt, okay? The moon is kind of in our kind of an orbit like this. So when you got to think about the sun, is we think about the sun as far away and small in the sky, but to the moon, that light is shrouding all around it. So we do have light that hits the face of the moon. So the moon is in opposition at a full moon. The opposite of a full moon is called a new moon, right? And the new moon will, the sun will go like this, and the new moon will go like this. And this is how we get partial eclipses and full eclipses. We know the position of the moon at all points, times, and day. So that April 8th solar eclipse was absolutely a solar eclipse. It was a new moon, and it was the calculated new moon of an actual totality solar eclipse over North America. I mean, a 16-year-old could go out there and map this out for a high school project. It's not hard to do. And you don't even have to rely on software. You could literally just go out there and watch it in the sky and watch its the analemic aspects of it. So remember, I showed you what the analemma is if you pinpoint the star, the sun in the sky every day.
Yep.
You can do that with the moon over a 28.5 degree cycle, and you know where the full moon is and you know where the new moon is, and they're on opposite ends of each other. With that being said, is you can do that over a 12-month period. You can map out partial eclipses and you can map out full eclipses. And so we can actually map that out to that high level of specificity. So,
and that's why you're the guy to come to with this stuff, man.
Yeah. Like I don't need technology or anything. Like we can go out there and we can literally use sticks in the ground to mark these points over a 28-day period and figure all this out. And we'll know when the moon is going to go in front of the sun.
And that's the reason, if you're not following Josh, you better. I want to give a shout out to AMAX308, $20 Rumble Rant. Hey, all. Thanks. Much appreciated. Any other thoughts you got on the movie then? Because if not, then I will bring up a comment that Meghan McCain said about the movie. Did you see that?
I did not see the comment. I want to see it, but my comments on the movie are buckle up. It's predictive programming. It's setting the narrative. Our minds are meant to fill in the gaps to understand what happens next, because this is the narrative that they're pushing. And as long as we are playing within their game, that is what is going to unfold. And the key there is what Alpha said earlier, is the moment you realize that you're in a PSYOP, the PSYOP no longer has power or effect over you.
100% agree with that one. On the screen, you guys are seeing Meghan McCain. It's probably some of your guys' favorite people on this plane. The new #Civil War movie is well worth your time and extremely compelling. We'll have more to say on this week's podcast, but I really enjoyed it, as weird as that sounds.
That's scary. She's like over there fingering her vagina, having orgasms to this movie. She's like, I can't wait to get revenge to these son of a bitches who killed my father.
Who says that, man?
A sicko, a sociopath. That's who says it. A sociopath.
Yeah, so somebody told me she said it, and I was like, nah, it's probably one of those parody ones or something like that. I was like, I gotta go look for myself. And then I looked, and I was just like, oh, shit.
Sociopath.
Like,
that's what that is.
I was like,
sociopath.
she freaking went there, man. So
we got a few out here in our community, too. I've been pointing them out in private. Sociopaths.
Well, there you have it. Josh, for those, I think you might have said it earlier, but just to recap, for those in my audience that are hearing you for the first time, or we got some newcomers, where can they find you? And are you working on any projects that you want to give a little tease on?
So redpills.tv, that is the place to find me and everything that we do on over there. For anybody out in Colorado, if you're out in Colorado, this is what I want you to do. Go to, so there's a naturally inspired health summit. It's in Colorado on June 1st. I'm going to be there. It's going to be a great time. I think Del Bigtree and a few other people are going to be there. A lot of good speakers. It's health oriented. Dr. Henry Ely is going to be there. It's a good time. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be walking around. I'm kind of like the co-MC. So it's going to be a fun time. So if you want to join me out in Colorado, you can find that information on my Telegram. It's pinned in my Telegram. And I believe that's at Red Pill. I'm sorry, I don't memorize my Telegram, which I probably should. I'm still building my Telegram up. I'm not as big as this guy over here with that. You can find my Telegram at t.me/redpillstv. t.me/redpills.tv. That information's on there. Everything else to contact me if you guys want to is on redpills.tv, including our private social network, which is awesome. And appreciate it, Alpha. And any projects coming up? I got some shit coming up, but I gotta focus. I'm trying to focus before they try to fuck us, right? So
I hear you, man. This is what I'll tell people. And I know there's people like, I don't want to give them my money. I don't want to do this. I get it. But here's the thing. It's not just about beating propaganda. It's about recognizing where they're going so we can get there first and rug pull it. Yeah, control the information with the truth. And the only way you can do that is you got to look at their playbook. That's my thoughts on that. Other than that, man, I've enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to the next one. Unfortunately, but fortunately, I think enough things are going to be transpiring over the next few weeks that I think this collaboration will be happening more. So for those that came and watched us from redpills.tv, love you guys. Thank you for sharing the wealth. And with that, we didn't interrupt this. We ran commercial free all the way to the end. So if you're watching on Josh's stuff, make sure you go check out his link, support the people that support him. And if you're here watching me, we'll play some commercials, support the people that support me. And with that, Semper Fi. We'll catch you guys next time. God bless.
When I started MyPillow, it was just a problem solution, one product company. Well, since then, with the help of my dedicated employees, we now have hundreds of products, some you might not even know about. To get the word out, we're having a $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. And for the first time ever, our 6-pack towel sets, you guessed it, just $25. Our brand new 4-pack dish towels, $25. And I've never done this before. Premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size for only $25. And there's so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code for our $25 extravaganza. Order $75 and over. Your entire order ships absolutely free.